Almost every day I'm asked questions about pests, and there's a wide range of pests in those questions. I'm going to try to mention every single one I get questions about and how to best address them organically, so in a healthy way that's good for our environment, good for the soil, good for us. I'm John Valentino. This is Chip Valentino. He's my vice president in charge of pest suppression. I've been working in this field now for 46 years, so I have some suggestions for you, particularly regarding organic control. If you're watching for a specific pest and don't want to watch this whole fantastic video, then you can refer below, which will direct you to specific chapters. We could, go get the traffic control and put it.
Filming in progress.
We don't have to explain it, we just block the road. They don't know what it's called, and a lot of times they don't know what it looks like, but you notice when your flowers bloom, then there's something eating the flowers, and that's rose weevil. Pretty frustrating, and mostly prevalent on white and yellow roses. Now, if you don't want to have rose weevil, plant deeply colored roses and you won't have rose weevil. I think the best way to address rose weevil is to apply beneficial nematodes early in the spring. I recommend that you get them from Arbico, and they've got a pretty good description on there of which ones to buy. There's different species, but beneficial nematodes for a rose weevil is pretty darn effective. Plus, beneficial nematodes are really interesting because that's really what we're trying to build in the soil. That's one of the higher life forms of beneficial microbes. So while we're building bacteria and fungi and protozoa, then right above all of those are beneficial nematodes, and they can keep your plants safe from almost everything. The whole point of using our products and using things like earthworm castings and compost is they're all around building the soil, and the soil is the most effective and efficient way to keep your plants healthy. If in the meantime, while you're building it, you have a problem with a pest or two or three, our philosophy is let's address that pest in the most beneficial way for the soil possible, so we can get rid of the pest without damaging the soil, maybe even improving the soil. Rose sawflies, rose slugs, those are most likely the same thing. They could be in different stages of the development. You can use the beneficial bacteria-based organic pesticide called spinosad. Different brands you can get that have spinosad in it. And also beneficial nematodes are effective again in the early spring. Why not apply beneficial nematodes? Then you can address rose weevil, rose slugs, and sawflies. We will be talking about quite a few different products, and you can reference those products in the description below. So the most harmless way to get rid of aphid and whitefly, and the first thing to try, is with a blast of water. Sometimes that'll work, especially if it's not a major infestation. My favorite way is not a very easy way, but it's fantastic for soil, and that is to use our blend around the root ball, and then on top of the blend use about 2 inches of a earthworm casting like Worm Gold Plus. Tremendously effective for whitefly and aphid. If you're trying to just immediately kill some aphid with something you spray on, our Enviro Repel 40 works pretty well. A number of oils and botanicals in there. One of the main active ingredients that's really effective is garlic oil, but it's not as good a long-term solution as improving the soil and addressing it with Worm Gold Plus. As with most pest problems, it's not absolutely necessary that your garden be entirely free of aphid and whitefly. A little bit here and there isn't going to hurt anything. In fact, many excellent gardeners consider it a plus because it can attract beneficials like ladybugs and parasitic wasps, which brings up a point of why we're doing organic control of aphid and whitefly. We not only want to not damage the soil, but we also don't want to damage the ecosystem, because in many cases, including this one of the best ways to control aphid and whitefly is with beneficials. We don't want to be damaging those, which a lot of chemical products do. And so you end up with this kind of antiseptic ecosystem. grubs slash Japanese beetles, it's really the same thing, although most people call them grubs, although many people call them Japanese beetles. I think this might be right up there with one of the most asked questions is grubs in their lawn, eating the roots. There are ways of controlling grubs and eradicating grubs that are good for the soil, and that's what we want to do. We want to continue to build the soil. One that is a little bit overlooked is the beneficial bacteria BT, Bacillus thuringiensis. And that's usually signified with a capital B and a small t. And there's a lot of brands of BT that you can buy, but it's really pretty darn effective. Maybe my favorite and most effective way and also best for the soil is beneficial nematodes again. And I like to get them from Arbico Organics. Does a very good job of long-term, kind of permanent control of grubs and Japanese beetles. Also, a popular one that is used widely is called Milky Spore. That's not a brand, that's a product, and there are a couple of brands. Those three products is what I focus on, not necessarily all of them, but I would start with the beneficial nematodes, and it might make the other two unnecessary. Lily beetle is a problem that I actually haven't encountered here in Central California, but many people have asked about it. One of the most effective treatment is the beneficial bacteria-based product called spinosad. Spinosad is available in several different products, but you can search spinosad to kill lily beetle and you'll come up with several products that I think do a good job. Most kinds of beetles can be eradicated with Bacillus thuringiensis. Again, that's the beneficial bacteria that's not damaging to your soil. It's an organic product. In addition to BT or Bacillus thuringiensis, you can use again, beneficial nematodes, and you would apply those in early spring. If you know you're going to have a problem of lots of different types, you can be applying beneficial nematodes while you're building the soil in a way that encourages beneficial nematodes. Rabbits, gophers, squirrels, moles, voles, throw in deer. One of the things I do is search for the scram products with the name of the offender right in front of it, deer scram or gopher scram. I've had good success with it, and those scram products work by the scent. They repel these pests instead of killing them. Obviously, there are ways to kill all of these things, but the scram products are one of my favorite ways. Another interesting thing, specifically for voles, and I don't know why it only works on voles, but very effective on voles is our Nourish Biosol. It's again the scent of it. Plus, you can do a great job of fertilizing your soil and your plants. You'll be spreading the products on the perimeter of these areas because you want to try to keep the offending varmints out of that area. You're just strategic in where you put it based on where you think the animals are coming in or where they're creating the problem. If they're creating the problem in your vegetable garden, you can apply it all around your vegetable garden. Have a common sense strategy session with yourself and determine where you want to apply. And a lot of times when we're in and out of yards, we're only applying them once. Many times, Chip, what are you barking at? Many times with one application it cures the problem, but sometimes I will recommend that it be reapplied every couple of months or so. Rats can be a real problem. There's some excellent peppermint products online that you can use as a repellent. Also, a product I've used with some success is these ultrasonic rat repellers. So you plug them into an outlet and they emit an anti-rat wavelength that makes rats scurry on down the block. I actually used that at my house and seemed to work pretty well. Cabbage worms, our EnviroRepel 40 works pretty well, and BT, Bacillus thuringiensis, which is a beneficial bacteria, works well also, and that's available in different brands. Unfortunately, the weekly application is probably going to be necessary. So if we neglected to mention your most horrible pest, put it in the comments below and we will address it in a future video. The absolute best way, I'm not even going to mention another product because this is so good at controlling and eradicating thrip. Back to the most mentioned way to eradicate pests is beneficial nematodes. Those are tiny little microscopic guys, and you put them in water. It's best to do it late at night or very early in the morning where they're not exposed to a lot of sunlight. And then you just spray it on, either with a spray tank or a hose-in sprayer or whatever you prefer. That's my number one recommendation, and I don't have another one. If you're in climates like we are in, you might only have to apply them once. If you're in climates with really cold weather can impact the population of beneficial nematodes, and so you might have to reapply like early every spring. What we're trying to do with our whole program is build soil that can maintain a level of population of beneficial nematodes. I think people shy away from using beneficial nematodes because of the name, and it sounds like something they don't want because they could be associated with the destructive nematodes. So nothing's more frustrating than having bad nematodes that eat the roots of your plants. The traditional ways of treating bad nematodes is with more and more toxic chemicals, and that usually renders the soil pretty much useless. Even if you get rid of the bad nematodes, it damages the soil so severely. Bad nematodes are best controlled by good nematodes, and that's why building your soil with complex soil life is the way to avoid bad nematodes. All our products, that's the whole point, is we're going to build it with life that can get rid of the bad nematodes. Good nematodes are the way to go, and applying them early morning, late evening in water, fairly easy process, maybe as often as once a year in the early spring. Fuchsia mites, similar to mites in general, don't have a lot of great organic solutions, but the best is insecticidal soap, which if you search online, insecticidal soap is usually recommended right after water for almost everything. It's considered, one of the most non-toxic ways of trying to organically treat things. Our Rose and Soil Defender works pretty well on Fuchsia mites also, and those are really my only two recommendations to treat them in an organic way. Usually ants aren't a primary problem, they're a secondary problem. They are a problem because they eat, say, the waste of aphid or the waste of whiteflies or the waste of other insects. If you get rid of the aphid and the whitefly and the other problem insects, usually the ants will go away. So that should be the first thing you try to see what you think the ants are feeding on, the waste of what, and then get rid of that problem. If you can't figure out what they're feeding on and why they're there, you can use spinosad, which is a beneficial bacteria. Also, I've had a lot of experience using our EnviroRepel 40. We've got a number of things in there, but we've got lots of garlic in there, and that is an excellent way to kill ants. When I'm trying to kill ants with our EnviroRepel 40, I use a strong mixture of it. I go a little beyond the label rate, and it does a good job not only killing them, but I don't see a return. Slugs, along with slugs is snails, sometimes they're considered the same. The most common way, which is not a bad way, in my opinion, is the product Sluggo, which is OMRI approved and organic and non-harmful for pets. If you research slugs, there's a whole controversial aura surrounding them because a slug here and there, it's kind of like an aphid here and there, not necessarily bad. It feeds part of what you want to feed to have an effective, well-rounded ecosystem. So it's not like we want to kill every slug, but when slugs start to be destructive, they're eating all your plants, then you have to do something. So to find a slug here and there, I would probably ignore it. So the first line of defense with most people is Sluggo, which is, widely available and easy to find and easy to apply. But there's another solution that it works probably better than Sluggo, and that's back to beneficial nematodes. Now, it takes a certain species, so you have to research the species of beneficial nematodes specifically for slugs. Some people in their garden are just overridden with slugs in a way that makes gardening impossible, and in that case, I think the beneficial nematodes are the way to go. If you have a slightly higher than normal amount of slugs that are doing marginal damage, the Sluggo's probably a good way to go. If you have very little damage, then I'd leave the slugs be and not worry about them. There used to be a man here in Fresno who is deceased now, but he used to raise snails and go and be available to go in people's gardens and pull out the snails, and it was part of his process of raising snails, and he sold snails to restaurants as escargot and did different creative things with snails. And he said that there's certain music that snails like. What he told me is their favorite song of his snails was I Just Called to Say I Love You by Stevie Wonder. So if you don't want snails, I'd say don't play that song. So Chip and I have concluded our video on organic treatment for pests, and we hope you liked it. Please like it if you did, and subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and encourage other people to watch our videos. And we just want to say we love you. I just called to say I love you. That's the parts the snails really like. I just called. Snails just need a little love. To say how much I care. Yeah, why are we killing them? I just called to say. As you might imagine, Ralph was a character.